apologise. Can I just say, if there are front bench talent spotters present, the honourable member from Uxbridge, I think, could provide an excellent role in the other place. Can I just say, on the new clauses relating to the Gangmasters Licensing Authority, I chair the PCS Parliamentary Group. I just say now, we've gone beyond the stage where we keep on willing the objectives without willing the means. There need to be adequate staff and proper resources to ensure that the GLA is effective. Can I just turn now briefly to the prostitution clauses that have been amendments that have been put forward? And I apologise to the House and all members for inundating them with briefings over the last 48 hours. I really apologise, but this debate came in a hurry, and it was important that people were allowed to express their views. Can I say, I always respect my honourable friend. I think she's really well intentioned. I support new clause 7 in terms of developing a strategy. I think that's critical. I support Amendment 1, which is the decriminalisation amendment, but I oppose fundamentally new clause 6 because I believe it's worrying, counterproductive and dangerous. And that's why I think new clause 22 gives us the opportunity of having a proper review with full time to undertake that work. Can I just say also, I know for some members of this House, sex work is abhorrent. But I have to say, in all the years since I've convened some of the first meetings of the Ipswich Safety First campaign in this House, after the 5 women were killed, I have met a number of men and women who actually have not been coerced into sex work and do not want their livelihoods curtailed in the way that's being proposed by criminalising clients. It's true, I've also met many others who've been entered into prostitution to overcome economic disadvantage. They suffer poverty to enable them to pay the rent, put food on the table for the children. But that's made worse by welfare benefit cuts, escalating housing costs and energy bills. And I think the answer is not to criminalise any of their activities, but actually to tackle the underlying cause, which is to stop cutting welfare benefits, ensure they have an affordable roof over their heads and access to decent paid employment. The whole issue has focused around this idea of if you can stop the client supply, somehow prostitution will disappear, or the exploitation and trafficking and violent abuse will disappear. And the argument that the Swedish model has been put forward as an example. Can I just say, on the briefings I've circulated, overwhelmingly, absolutely overwhelmingly, there's been opposition and criticisms of the Swedish model. And it's come from charities like ScotPEP, the Scottish Prostitute Education Project, funded by the state. It's come from the RCN, the nurses themselves, the network of sex worker projects. Again, government funded to try and get women and others off the game, nevertheless are saying this would be counterproductive. The academic research is that the Home Office itself is commissioned. I've circulated a letter with 30 academics from universities right the way around the country, basically saying this legislation is dangerous. And I have to say, we need to listen to sex workers themselves. The English Collective of Prostitutes, the Sex Hooker Open University, the Harlots Collective, the International Committee of the Rights of Sex Workers. Flamboyant names, but actually they do represent sex workers, all of which are opposed to the criminalisation of clients.
I wonder if
Excellent. Very briefly.
Could you quote some sources from Sweden? Because I understand
yes, I can.
People in Sweden, they don't take that view.
I come straightly to that, actually. Let me go through the others that we've listened to. Lawyers, the human rights bodies like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, UNAID, even the Women's Institute down in Hampshire, and I warn you, never cross the Women's Institute anywhere, and also those members of the Ipswich Safety First Coalition who dealt with the deaths those years ago. And what's the consensus? The consensus that is criminalising clients of Swedish legislation, there's no evidence either reduces client numbers or numbers of sex workers. And I quote, let me just finish this. I can quote at length, given the length of time we haven't got, I can quote at length from the Swedish government's own reports that has demonstrated that there's no correlation between the legislation they introduced and the reduction in clients or sex workers, certainly.
Said that they don't have evidence on that. That's quite true. But they did have evidence that the number of men who pay for sex in Sweden has gone down very significantly.
Well, let me just answer that one. It was one survey where if men are being asked, do you pay for sex because you can be prosecuted for it, naturally said no. So the evidence itself was challenged. What is the other part of the consensus? This argued that other governments are now acting following the Swedish one. South Africa has rejected it. Scotland rejected it because they introduced the curb crawling thing. In terms of France, the Senate now has actually rejected it on the basis of sex workers will be put at risk. And even Canada now, there's threats to legal action against it on that whole issue of safety and security of sex workers. The other consensus that's come out of these organisations is not only doesn't work, it actually causes harm. And we know this because we undertook our own research through the Home Office 2005, 2006. And what did that say? It said sex workers themselves are saying it means that we never have time to check out the clients in advance. We're rushed. We're pushed into the margins of society, and as a result of that, it does us harm. And there are alternatives. I don't recognise the view on the New Zealand proposed implementation of decriminalisation that my honourable friend has said, because all the research is actually saying it is working. Who's saying that we should look at decriminalisation? The World Health Organization, the UN Women's Group, UN AIDS. And actually, if you look at the letter I circulated from Nigel Richardson, who's not just a lawyer representing sex workers, but actually acts as a judge as well, he's saying there is existing laws that we can tackle abusive sexual exploitation that way. So my conclusion is this. I appeal to this House, do not rush to legislate in such a contested issue where there's such conflicting research, evidence and views. That's why I think New Clause 22 gives us a way through on all this. It enables us to undertake the necessary research, consult, bring forward proposals, and then legislate if necessary. And I want to include in that consultation the New Zealand model and full decriminalisation. I'm not in favour of legalisation. I'm in favour of full decriminalisation. And on that basis, can I just end with this? I think listen to those with experience. Safety first, I convened some of the meetings here to brief members on what happened. What happened there is they invested money in the individuals, £7,000 a prostitute, and you actually got them out of prostitution by investing money, not on criminalising them. And the quote from the Reverend Andrew Dotchin, who was a founder member of the Safety First Coalition: I strongly oppose clauses on prostitution and modern slavery bill which would make purchase of sex illegal. Criminalising clients does not stop prostitution, nor does it stop the criminalisation of women. It drives prostitution further underground, making it more dangerous and stigmatising women. I fully support the Reverend Andrew Dotchin in his views.
David Borrows.
Thank you, Madam